Great Tuesday, and welcome to the Misothered podcast, or as we build out this title, Rachel have the title for us. But great Tuesday, ladies. How you all feeling today?
I'm feeling great.
Feeling alive, King.
And one of the things I've learned through the years of doing many meetings, many podcasts, many Zoom calls, is always do the check-in, just to see is alignment there, and then what's the frequency. Because I've learned that if the numbers are lower, then it's best always to reschedule and not continue just because it's on the checklist or on the task list. So with that being said, the question becomes, what's our spiritual energy number from 0 being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome? Where right in the moment.
You have 10 from me. Life is awesome.
Yeah, I'm also vibrating at a 10 according to your scale. And according to my scale, I have now reframed that into I'm vibrating with love.
There you go. Again, I love that too. And I match you all with your vibrations of love and a 10 as well. I just want to add this, and living at the state of gratitude. And I just want to add this to the show because I think it sets the context and the container for our protection. Is my belief. I don't have any spiritual training behind it. Just is what I'm being feeling and being told in the moment, that if you start your container in gratitude and the frequency of a high vibration, then the meeting's going to go as the meeting's supposed to go. And you can choose what you receive from it, but it's at least intentionality is set. And so with that being said, I'll start by saying what I'm grateful for this morning: my life, my health, my ability to see, hear, walk, talk, stand, breathe, and have a sound mind. Another 24 hours to pursue my purpose in life. I'm grateful for my problems, because through those problems, I see opportunities to grow. And I'm also grateful for you all both being here, being present, being engaged, and the infinite possibilities this day is going to provide.
I couldn't have said it better. Thank you, King.
Yeah. I am grateful for friendship. I'm grateful for connections and for the interactions that I experience in my lifetime. I'm really clear that it's the reflections that I receive from others that really brings a lot of quality and vitality to my life. I'm grateful for the connections that we all have together and for the opportunity we have to share our connections with others. I'm grateful to be here.
I'd like to add to all of what you said, ditto, and add into that I am grateful for being part of the natural world, all of nature, all of creation, which may have been part of what you all said too.
Well, no, it's important ads. One thing I want to share before we get into our show, and Rachel, you can let us know what topic you're feeling as we build on this. I have to say this, Rachel, I haven't known you for long, and I never really worked with a person with a health crisis and built with. But I say you bring a certain, style to it. Like, you still keep your style, your flow, your rhythm, and I like that. You don't let yourself just get, and it wouldn't be a judgment. You don't let what you're going through affect you. You take it with a whole different energy level of, I'm going to win this. I'm conquering this. And that's what I always see from folks when I hear people, entertainers, talk about struggling with, a health crisis, and they say, I'm going to win. I never hear someone say, I'm winning, right? And having that as a mindset, it's like the goal is to win. And in the middle of that, they're in that battle, and they just accept the fact that it's horrible, but they're going to win. Like you're fighting, like you're trying to kill Moby Dick. I'm going to win, but right now I'm losing. So you give that grace to it, which shows that you're winning. That's what I received from you in the midst of your journey.
Thank you, King. I don't really look at it from a point of winning or I'm going to win. I guess I am naturally competitive by nature. I always have been. Like, let's play baseball and I'm going to win. It's, for me, it's that I've done so much work in my life that I don't want this to become my identity. And I know we have talked about identity, but my goal isn't to win or to overcome. My goal is to live. And if living means experience, which it does to me on every single level, then yeah, I'm going to be experiencing this, but I'm living, and I'm still going to be holding the integrity of who I am versus an identity of something that is happening to me, or not even to me, something that is happening.
Yeah.
And just not allowing it to be my identity.
Yeah. It's a really great distinction. And I think that in the conditions that we grew up in, it's conditioned in us to be like, who do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
You know? And then think of an identity and then walk into that identity as if that would be the winning. Like, I'm going to win if I can actually step into that identity and be trained how to be that thing. So what a distinction it is to like clear that whole slate and say, it's not that. It's not about getting an identity.
Yeah.
Because the identity is just the conditioning that's going to happen to you. So actually, you're going to want to move through that identity to actually understand that life is the goal and that we're going to have many, many different experiences with our life. And it's really important to be careful about as you go through those experiences to not identify as them. And I think that even with children, when we talk about feelings and emotions that we come across as, how are you feeling today? Well, I'm sad. And now I'm that whole identity. It's like that movie that they made, like Inside Out, where like there's all these different feelings, like sad and angry, and they're actual identities. So we actually get to shift it when we can state, instead of like, I am cancer or I have cancer, to be like, I'm experiencing cancer while I'm living. It's like,
Maybe we don't lead the witness so much.
yeah. And then in that, you're unothering.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something just popped in my head while you are talking, and definitely, gratitude for your lessons. That's why I love doing the show with you all, because you all help me see some things I may not necessarily saw in my mind and help me elevate my thinking to a different level. And that's the value I get. But what I was thinking about while you were talking in identity, and I thought about Michael Jackson, because his name constantly stays in my lexicon. Either I'm listening to his music or because his movie just came out now, Netflix is doing a documentary, so he stays present one way or another. And what I was thinking about the fact that he's always known as this person that was lonely. He stepped into the identity as being lonely. And here's the ironic part about it, is that every fan that loves him would like, I would love to be his friend. So he has all these people that want to be his friend, and here this person is choosing again to be lonely because that's his identity. To your point, he said, I'm sad. The child said, I'm sad. He's saying, I'm lonely. And he took that and owned that. And that became a part of his brand just as much as his singing and dancing, because that everybody knows that Michael Jackson was a lonely man and that never really had friends. And we feel sorry for him because of that. And that had to be, that's why I say, Rachel, I get inspiration from you, because you choose not to lean into those, what I call the constructs program ways that we're supposed to be in certain situations. You choose not to make that your identity, and you choose to look to grow and have a growth mind and still keep your style, still keep what you feel is important to you and show up there. And that to me is what people need to see in today's time. Because in this world we're living in right now, everybody is so, at least in the world that my lexicon, people are constantly othering all the time. Every conversation's of it, And so you are the only ones I get a chance to talk to that's not in that energy, or either I got to be in my head, and I choose to be alone, not lonely.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about everything that you just touched on. Michael Jackson lived and relived and looped in his traumas, it seemed, I mean, from my point of view. And I guess he like everyone built upon all of that as best he could and utilized it as tools as best he could to create a life for himself, which I think is all that any of us are truly doing. Um, and it is a matter of choice. It's choosing how we want to build that. Do we want to build it and like Jess was saying, I'm a cancer victim? No, I don't want to do that. And it's taking that dive to go deeper into, who am I? And I'm fortunate that I was able to study all kinds of self-help and spiritual information and healing modalities, and I mean, you name it, throughout my life. So I'm really fortunate that I have those tools to work with, whereas many people don't. But I think that there's something innate in all of us that we have to work with, and somehow it comes to the surface. Something triggers it. And as much as I have had these tools and worked in and around all of these things for so many years, I feel like this journey's led me deeper into the integration of all of those tools and those knowings and those teachings. And I'm choosing that. Like, I could choose to be a used car salesman. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just what we choose and what resonates with us, which brings me to what I was hoping to talk about today. We've talked about the aspect of othering and how we look at someone else as something other than us, which, yeah, obviously everything is other than us, but yeah, everything is us at the same time. There's mirrors and lessons and learnings and connections. But what happens when the othering that we're trying so hard to neutralize from a space of like racism or hierarchy or things like that, what happens when it's just merely your own personal resonance? Like, what do you do? For me, I've been toying with, in particular this last week, and it's interesting timing for me that I've been analyzing a lot of the patterning in my life, and I call myself a pattern breaker. So that's part of my identity that I am definitely choosing. But not necessarily a breaker, but a shifter. Like, I want to shift the patterns in my life that have caused me strife, or caused me isolation, or caused me to just not live to my fullest potential. And so by recognizing those patterns, then I can shift them into a more beneficial trajectory. And by doing that, I've noticed that there's many things that I don't resonate with, but yeah, I still allow them in my life. And likely because I have always been so conscious of not othering. I don't want to put definitives up against. I want things to flow. But by doing that, I've allowed patterns to occur time and time and time again. So there's a fine line between, for me, and this is what I'm experimenting with, the othering versus the allowance of resonance. And if something doesn't resonate with me, I'm learning that I can recognize that, and I can choose to keep working with it, or I can choose not to. I can choose to be around it, or I can choose not to be around it. And if I'm choosing to be around it, likely I'm recognizing that there's more there, more to nourish me, more to learn from, or to I don't know, more to grow with. But then you come to a point where, and this is in my experiment, that, you know, it goes back to how I was raised, who was around me while I was being raised, the people, their actions, and time again, you know, something happens, or even with a person in our life, something happens and you forgive them, which, yeah, forgiveness is great. Forgiveness to me is for mostly for myself. But what happens when you forgive and you still allow that in your life, even though there's like no resonance there? It's like like the opposite, the magnetic opposites.
Mm-hmm.
And you forgive it, but you still allow it there. So it's constantly going like this to you. How is that beneficial to me? And I'm playing with the idea of resonance versus othering, because I don't want to other someone just because they don't resonate with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I don't resonate with you. I still love you. I still care about you. I still want the best for you. It's just that right now there's not a connect or a flow. And I say right now because I've had people in my life where I was like, nope, never again. I am done. Doesn't resonate, overdone, made that choice. But then years later, I come into contact with them or even an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, wow, that totally resonates with me now.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to do with living in the now. It has to do with how we identify with things. Do we look at things as mentors? Do we look at things as something we idolize? Do we look at things as idealizing? And then, like I said, I have all these tools from all these spiritual teachings and self-help and even psychology. And I guess just recently I watched or I listened to a YouTube with Edgar Casey's teachings of the 12 signs of true spiritual what was the word, existence, I guess. And to me, I don't ever want to be that perfect because I'd get really bored. Like, I want all these new things and these challenges. So there's this huge, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, paradox in a way.
Yeah. I'm totally aligned with you on that. I've had a big history of working with children in environments who are not resonating with others. And it creates this othering situation of like, well, this one isn't getting along. This other one isn't like making the environment work. This one needs to leave. And it's been an interesting journey going into those environments, knowing that othering might be needed. You know, we might not be resonating. We might need to separate and create different environments so that we're not like clashing or hitting up against each other. And then there's other times where it's like, no, we might need this pattern. This pattern might actually be for our highest and best learning for all of us. We might need to lean into being uncomfortable for a moment. There might be something in here. And just doing that in environments with children has then taught me the importance of that in life. There might be some medicine in this uncomfortable. Like I might not want to get out of this too fast. So I'm just curious with you, Rachel, and your journey with cancer, because you shared on our last show about how when you received the diagnosis that was like shutting down, and I'm not sure I'm going to tell anyone other than my boys. I'm not going to take on this identity. And then you've been through quite a bit of journeying with it and being quite public with it now. And so I'm curious about this this label of cancer and how you've kind of ebbed in and out of the identifying with it and then not identifying with it and seeing the patterns. And yeah, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I still don't identify with it. Like, I mean, it's something that's part of my world currently, but it's not part of my identity. And I believe that there's a reason that it is in my world. So there's some sort of a resonance that brings it in. So when I first started with this, I definitely othered myself. And that's why I was saying, like, well, you were talking about certain patterns are useful for one and aren't for another. And we've othered them on one level and not othered them on another. And that's why I said that earlier in some of our discussions. I was like, the art of othering, because it's like a fine art. You have to know how to navigate it and when. And, it's like lizard energy. You have to sit there and wait patiently until the right moment, and then leap forward. But for me, the journey did start out with a huge struggle because it was a shock. And anytime that there's a shock in our lives, there's a stop. And when you stop, and I've taught this, like I taught this to so many people and so many of my clients, I was like, pause. The first thing is to stop and pause and allow yourself that pause. And I didn't even heed my own advice. I was just like, what do I do? So I othered myself, but I did pause. And then I paused like forcefully, whether you like it or not, you're going to pause. And for me, I feel like that was partly was the universe speaking to me, like, or God, or whatever you want to call that, creator, saying, it's time to take a moment, and it's time to really integrate into who you are, what you really want out of this life, and how you want to move forward. And we're going to give you some added handicaps along the way too. So it's like, oh, okay. So that took away from a previous identity, made me realize that I had a lot of identities that I wasn't even aware of, which I think we all have. Now, as opposed to then, now I feel like I've been filled with a lot more grace in being able to navigate. And that's not to say that I'm perfect, because I have days where I'm just like, why is this? And what? And then I'm like, I catch myself. And I think it's important that I let things out, but it's also important that I catch myself too, because I think if we don't catch ourselves, we can wallow and we can become trapped. And I've said it out loud. I'm like, I feel trapped today. And, my poor husband partner, I'm like, I'm feeling trapped. Don't talk to me, because anything that he has to say just makes me feel more trapped. And it's so unfair to him. But at the same time, I really have to be able to voice myself.
Yeah.
And it's not even voice myself because I don't necessarily want to be heard. It's more that I want it to, I want to have a sense of release. And I am partially a verbal processor. So to be able to do that with my vocals is important. And sometimes I do it through breath work. Sometimes I do it through toning. Every day is different. And just like life in general, no matter what you're going through or no matter how you're living, good, bad, happy, sad, every day is different. And if we can look at it from the filter of everything and every day and every moment is different, nothing is ever the same, then it makes it easier and allows you to travel in that flow of grace.
Yeah.
So,
I'm chuckling because I'm like, you're just normalizing grief. Like yes, I'm like, as a grief coach, you're just normalizing that it's totally okay to go through change, and that it might do me some good to just plan on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm one I always have loved like new. But when this happened, I was like, well, this is new. And this is not the new that I usually like to have going on. I like to do the new travel or the new cultural experience or meet the new people. Well, this is certainly new, way new. Yeah, it's been a journey.
You know, I want to go back to something you had said in the previous conversation about looking at resonance and othering. Because see, my whole business is built off othering. Now I get the art of othering is a good title for the show. We should go with that. Because I was so caught up in the weeds, I couldn't see that I was othering. But that's exactly what I do. That's my business. It's to take a large group of people and then other it all the way down to my tribe. And so othering can be a good thing and necessary thing. But at the same time, you know, again, I live in systems and I live in frameworks and I live in understanding the universe is a system. And there's people in my life who I don't resonate with. And but my point for me, I have to figure out, can I still see value in it? Even though they can be a decrease, is there a value in still having them in my life at certain points, not in my life consistently every day, but when I'm ready to deal with it. And it's kind of like taking cough syrup. You know, it's a nasty taste, it's a drainage, but you know, it's inevitably going to designed to help you feel better. And so I have people in my life that fit that description. Now, what I've changed now is my expectations of what I expect from them. That way I'm not disappointed. I understand how they fit into my life. It's much like once you learn and become more aware of certain things, your way you look at things change. Like, for example, all my life growing up, bees were a problem to me. I hated bees. Every time I saw a bee, I would want to run, kill it, get it away. You know, the bees flying around. And then I learned later on, of course, how bees are so important to the environment, to the world. And then you know that they don't harm a bee. So there's a whole shift completely. And so now having bees around me doesn't bother me anymore. They bother, you know, where it did before, where it was such a drainage in my entire life until I changed the way I looked at that. You know, and now it's an increase. I'm happy to see bees. I understand the importance. So I just think everything comes down to awareness and knowledge and vibrational level for me of where I am, and then figuring out, like you said, you're learning, you're experimenting, you said that. You didn't say I've discovered, I figured it out, right? Those are important words, distinction, point out. And that's where I believe that there are 6 pillars to being fully human. Number 1 is your identity. It needs to be fully human. Number 2 is growth mindset. You got to constantly realize that you are always learning. You don't have all the answers. You know, number 3, you have a higher purpose and service. Number 4, you would have a grateful spirit. Because I can't build with someone who's not grateful. Like, you're not grateful for the things you have every day. I can't build with you because you're not going to be grateful when we get there. And there's always going to be something else you want. It would never end if you're chasing money or value. So you be grateful for what you have. Number 5 is your governing principles. What do you use to make sure you're doing justice and the right thing? It's not always you being right. You know, the right thing may be you being wrong, but the right thing is in that moment. Like, for example, a family member who I don't want to talk to, because I know they're drainage. They're definitely not vibrating nowhere near me, but understanding at the same time that they're in their shadow, in their pain, and if I'm with them for 2 hours and let them have me in their lives, that can maybe not put them towards drinking more or even suicide. You never know how my selfishness of me wanting to be away from them can impact their lives because I'm choosing to make this narrative about it. Well, I can write any narrative I want. I can write the narrative like the bee is the greatest thing in the world. Don't kill a bee, right? And make that narrative my narrative. And now when I see my brother, that's the world I create. And that's where I go back to Neville Goddard and really believing that everyone is you pushed out. And that I saw this other movie, and I kind of make my point up on this. There's this movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once. And when that movie came out about maybe 10 years ago, I believe, I never saw it. It didn't look interesting to me. But then I heard so many people talk so much about it and how you should see this movie. And so I finally got a chance to see it. And it's a movie with this, I forgot the Asian actress name. She's pretty known in American Asian movies. But anyway, the premise of it is this. There's these multi-dimensionals, and there's over 500 more versions of each of us. And just in this dimension, there's this version of it, but there's also another 500 divisions and versions of you out there, and they have a completely different lives based on the choices that you're making. So every choice creates a different stream and branch off. And then the movie, she's experiencing all these different dimensions at once. And that's the plot of the movie. But my point is, it goes right back to, again, everyone that you pushed out, believing that all these dimensions and everyone you're experiencing, if you're experiencing, and even Carl Jung talks about this. He says, what irritates us most about others, we can always find it within ourselves. So again, he's kind of making that same reference that if you see something that really annoying you, and someone's energy really annoys you, it's a lesson there. You have to learn that. How you learn that is a journey, right? There is no one to say this is how you learn it, but you have to have the intentionality is, I got to figure out why this is in my life. Why is this fly I can't kill just stuff buzzing me around, right? Eventually, you keep hearing that fly, you ignore it for a while, then it's buzzing so much, you got to deal with it. It becomes your dominant decision in that moment. And then when you deal with it, it passes. You never think about the fly ever again. It's like, so that for me that's the engineering in me. That's what I'm growing. The spiritual part of me is growing, even within these conversations we're having. I don't have to be so structured, but I believe in my mind, that's how I naturally am. Everything has to be so structured. One equals next step. What's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next step? And then if you fall backwards, then find a better way up the staircase. But never continue, never quitting going up the staircase. I'm getting up the staircase.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I've played with that a lot, and that's where I'm at right now, is that when I was sharing a few minutes ago about the patterns and in people, particularly people around me. Sometimes it's animals or nature or something that's coming forth, or an idea. I'm like, why does that keep coming up? And I'll really look at it. But lately, I think that a lot of the things that are coming up are coming up to me because it's something that's come up many, many, many times, and I've addressed it, or I've forgiven it, or I've whatever, or I've learned from it. So why is it still coming up? And sometimes I'm finding that it's simply coming up because I'm choosing to be in its orbit, and I'm no longer resonating with it. So it's there. Like, this is something you don't resonate with. Why are you still putting yourself there?
Yeah.
And it's okay to walk away. It's okay.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a huge lesson.
It is.
Jess, you talked a little while ago, and I wanted to say something to what you said about normalizing grief. I think we should normalize grief. I think we should have that from the moment we're born, because I think the day that we die, or the day that we lose some pattern in our lives that was non-beneficial, which usually comes about through some sort of traumatic incident, we should celebrate that. Oh my gosh, yay, now look what we've achieved, or look what we've recognized now. Or I've had a lot of lessons in grief. I've had people in my family murdered. I've had sudden car accidents. I've had bizarre deaths all through my life, and it has been something that's been in my face, this notion of loss. But I can guarantee you that every single time I've allowed myself to really truly reflect on it, they were hidden gifts. They changed my life's direction in such profound ways that were always beneficial. And fortunately for me, I was able to see that. And I think a lot of the time people get lost in the sad, or they don't see the lesson. And then I don't know, the as with anything, and what you were talking about, King, made me think of this. You can take a medical study, we'll use for an example, and there's a huge study right here that says, oh, beneficial, does this, does this, does this. Well, who's supporting that study? Number one. Is it money driven? Is it popularity driven? Is it doctor driven? Is it save lives driven? Is it, where is that study coming from in order for all of that information to come through? And here's the other side of it. The money driven study comes through. Yeah, this is a great product. We're going to make a ton of money off of it. Let's promote this. And if you really dig into it from another filter, maybe a human filter or a loving filter, you're going to find, oh, this study was done in petri dishes, not with real human beings, or this study was done and skewed in this direction because of this target, which it's like I always say everything is everything and anything is everything. And so like I see a lot of media that comes out, and I try not to even watch it anymore because it's just so chaotic and mind-boggling, which I think is by design, of course. But things as simple as the hype of othering, the hype of one group of people being against another group of people, and then the media sweeps in, who's funded by or has their own agenda and says, oh, this is happening. So then this group of people gets even more angry or irate with these people, and then these people get more angry, and it's just like, and it's just dividing and dividing and dividing further and further and further. And that's, to me, that's what othering actually is division of, doesn't have to be people. It can be of our own selves, division of mind and heart, division of thoughts, division of wholeness. I guess division of wholeness really sums it up.
Yeah, division of wholeness.
Yeah.
And I think division of wholeness comes from our traumas. Yeah, last week on my Substack, I actually wrote about like not normalizing grief and seeing grief in the inside of where I feel could be a celebration. And what I talked about was with young adults that I see in my world who have had trauma early in their lives, they didn't have this free child experience. And now when they're watching their child go through these freeing child experiences, they're actually experiencing it as sad. Like, oh, my child had the most amazing birthday and the most amazing physical leap. Cry. And I'm like, why is the cry on the leap of the child's progression? And then I'm like, oh, that's the unprocessed grief of the parent who didn't get that childhood. And so there's this collapse from the trauma, the unprocessed trauma, the unprocessed grief that then gets projected on the next generation.
I'm not maybe understanding. While I was following you up until the grief part, I was like, oh, because they're so happy that they're crying from joy, because I look at tears from so many different angles.
Yeah. So, if it were that way, if it were like, oh, like,
yeah.
But when I look at it deeper, it's like, no, there is a sadness. There's an actual sadness there. And it comes from the sadness of like, oh, I didn't have that childhood. I didn't have that birthday. I didn't have that experience of these people watching me as I was going through that celebration. And so it's literally the sadness of the adult parent now that's not processed their childhood grief. Right? And so then it's like, I can't fully be whole. I can't fully be present because there's a part of me that's still sad that didn't get that. And so if we could just like normalize that, like that we all have this inner child in us that is still scared of the bee, doesn't want that separation, doesn't want that scary thing that I don't know what it is. But as I go through my life experience and I can see this pattern come back over and over and over, and now I'm not scared of the bee anymore. And now I can see like, oh, I actually want to protect the bee and give the bee life. Now I can see all these patterns actually helped me shift the trauma of the separation so that I can be fully whole and say, oh, the bee is amazing and brings life. And I can have an awareness about this thinger, like there's some evolution in the process.
Yeah.
I want to give a perspective on it quickly. So I think this is, again, just the way I think, the way I process things. Looking at Alan Watts, listening to his teaching of you are the universe, experiencing life. And you really put that in that context. And then saying that your thoughts are not you. They're just thoughts that pop in your head, and you treat those like clouds in the sky. You don't have to act on it. Like you say, someone called me stupid. I can act on that. I can hit them. Where the anger coming from? Or I could just hit them. Or I could just choose not to. Like, I don't have to act on the thought that says hit them. Or I am stupid. How did he know? I thought I was dressed differently. I thought no one knew me here. Now he knows I'm stupid. I can let that take me down the hole. So, and all that thought is on those clouds of thoughts are going to be based off how you were taught and how you were programmed as a child. And the older you get and you realize that you are really the universe and you really are energy and everything is energy, that you could just choose to observe your thoughts and then say, I am sad. I didn't get that childhood. But why do I care about that right now? It's interesting. Yeah. Right? And just really begin to, but that takes a learning process, right?
It is a learning process.
It's easy for me to say that.
Yeah.
But see, for me, when I read that and hear that from him, that now becomes my goal. How do I get to the point where I'm naturally thinking that way? Right. And that's the way I want it. Because it's easy to say that, but then you get triggered, you're not going to do that instinctively. Yeah. But to get to the point where instinctively that's the thought, that's where I think mastery comes in. I don't know if you ever get there, but that's the journey that you go through. And if you master as many of those as is possible, not everything, as many as possible, then that's what life's journey is. Like now, if your kid, the first time your kid falls and you're a parent, that's scary, right? You don't know how that's going to respond. Then you realize after a while, the kid's going to fall and it's no longer a big deal. It's a big deal to the kid the first time too. Then it learns, oh, falling down is not a big deal. Yeah, it hurts, but I get up. There's a solution. There's a Band-Aid. There's a system for how this gets treated. And now I understand that. So the awareness grows. And that's just what life is. It's growing your awareness to the point where things become much more manageable, because imagine the anxiety you're feeling when you don't know the solution to something. Yeah. But once you're going through it and you know folks who've gone through it, it just becomes easier to deal with.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah. You're definitely normalizing grief right now. So thank you.
And
or we're normalizing life.
Yeah, life and life experiences.
Grief is part of life. It's just part of it.
Because you're going to fall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting though, at the beginning of life, we go through all those griefs of never having this experience. And so every time I fall, it's horribly sad. And then we become incredibly resilient. And I can fall as many times because I can just get back up that many times. And then we hit some life crisis and all of a sudden falling is traumatic again.
But then it becomes this big story. How do I get out of this? And then for me personally, it's I had this big story happen, boom. Okay, that's grief. And then it becomes a story. And I think the trick is to not get caught up in the story and to keep navigating life. Whereas if you get caught up in the story, it can get a little weird.
I think a little bit of both. I think getting caught up in the story can be detrimental. I also think getting caught up in the story for a moment to allow it to come up and out completely can be extremely cathartic and healing.
Yeah, I
But
don't
letting the
disagree with that.
story like fester and get stuck can
Mhm.
also, yeah. So there's maybe like 3 stages of story where like I'm stuck in the story, I'm processing the story, and I've released the story.
But don't make your whole world about the story. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that could be.
but here's also the interesting thing too: the story wasn't real.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
we can sit here and have a conversation about an event that we talked about in our podcast last week. And if we were taken in separate rooms and told, okay, talk about last week's podcast, we're going to have a different story. It's not going to be universally sync. We can agree at the time we showed up. We can agree who was on the call. But other than that, it's going to be our interpretation and what we choose to believe is the rest of that story. It's not, that's not the real story. That's what Don Miguel Ruiz teaches us and the 4 agreements, that we are the authors of our own story, and
And yeah, not take it personally.
not take it personally. And that's so freeing. And that's what people don't really realize, that when you really on that path to say, I'm going to not take things personally, make that intention, it changes you the minute you really start doing it, because then you get tested. And then when you get triggered and then catch yourself, no, I'm not going to take it personally. Even though somebody comes to you and directly said, this is personal, says your name, it's written here, this is personally done to you, you really still realize it's not personal, because it's still something they're dealing with in their shadow selves. And you just happen to be the person they're taking their energy out on. Right.
Mhm.
And it's not personal, really. And once you can get to that kind of agreement, I think it just changes how you vibrate and how you look at the world.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's free, because to your point, what you said earlier, Rachel, about the media is controlled by, all the networks controlled by 5 families. Then every media network is. So, and then they all, so you give us information on every network that's saying pretty much the same thing. So it's definitely programmed and it's definitely intentional. That's not even, I would say, hidden at this point in our lives. So once you understand that, then you have to be doing something to counter that, or you're going to get caught up in that, because it's going to be around you. Your family is going to bring you news. Even if you say, I'm not going to watch the news, someone in your family is going to tell you about the news. Or your phone is going to send you an alert where you're getting at least a Facebook post about somebody telling you about the news. So you're not going to escape it, but you have to have a way that you're saying, I'm also simultaneously building my own plan. And the plan I'm building is going to be, how do I lift up somebody? How do I stay in love energy and keep my thoughts there? Because you're going to have thoughts. And I'm just saying, if you let the construct program your thoughts, they're always going to stay low vibrational. You're going to see yourself as the victim, and the othering is bad. The othering is your enemy, and they're the reason you're in this situation. And the contract tells you that. The reason that your taxes are high, the immigrants come here. The reason there's no jobs, it's always somebody else's fault. And the reason you're going through something, and you let someone keep telling you that, and you think that the solution to your problem is to deal with that other, you being triggered and controlled. Whatever the story you build around it is, right? And once you understand that, you see the systems in it. And that's why I believe, again, for me, that's why I say working with you, Rachel, and been this part is, that's the choice I'm choosing, is to focus on the law of service. And how can I do that better? And how can I use all the talents and skills and competence and abilities and networks and money to make that happen?
Yeah.
Right. And stay in that space for the last phase of my life. Let that be my dominating thought and my intention. Right. And then build frameworks around it to get others to say, well, that's not just have me do it. It becomes a momentum when everybody does it. And how do you get other people involved in that?
I think it's important that we all remember too that we're not in charge. And even the people that we think are in charge, they're not in charge either. There's a force, or however you want to call it, that we all flow with, regardless of what story we're living, what trauma's up, what grief's up, what joy's up. We're still in a flow. And I believe personally that there is a much bigger picture that I don't necessarily see, but through certain practices and certain choices, that I'm more able to harmonize with that flow and actually be in it. And part of that, part of my journey is dealing with cancer and all that comes with it. So if I utilize the tools that I've been gifted, I can navigate that flow of that story a little easier. And it's something that we probably should talk about for people too, is like how what do you use? You know, for me, for years I've used breath work, and I know King, you're going into the breath work arena, and Jess, I know you've utilized breath work, and it can be so simple.
Yeah.
It can, or mantra. I always share with people, my clients, I used to share with them mantra, you know, what are you dealing with right now? Give me like 4 words that describe what you're dealing with, and then give me 4 words that could ease you or make you feel at ease while you're dealing what you're dealing with.
Mhm.
And learn how to repeat those words, and don't just repeat them when the issue comes up or when you're feeling tense. Do it all the time, because it's been proven that the practice of japa, which is the repetition of mantra, and this was used in the, I guess the Hindu traditions are probably most famous for it. You know, choosing a mantra literally, scientifically clears channels in your brain, like, because there's channels that form, physical channels that form in your brain, and by use of mantra repetitively, they clear.
Yes.
And so
Your-
like even like things like Alzheimer's and dementia, people have come out of those
Mhm.
by utilizing some of these things. And I don't think that the majority of the population is even aware of those tools, and they're so simple.
Right. I think what you're pointing to is when someone's in the storm, they're actually in the story. And when you're trapped in the story or you're a victim of that circumstance, it can be very dark. It can be challenging to see your way out. And there are tools
Mm-hmm.
to find your way through that. It's just part of our human process. It's not to say you're not in a story right now, Rachel.
I think everybody's in a story, or we wouldn't be here.
Right? But it's like how we identify
Right.
as it, right?
How we
And then
navigate it.
how do we navigate it?
Right.
What tools do we use to navigate it? So like I want to say enjoy. So I can enjoy this experience and not identify as the experience.
Right.
And to that point, it's much like we got to unlearn what we've been taught. Again, it goes back to what we've been programmed. So we've been programmed so much into our identity. Like the other day, I was coming home and walking late because I did something, giving a homeless man some food, which caused me to walk later than I normally would walk, and put me in the time of trying to beat out a storm that I did not beat out. And I got caught right in the middle of the storm. And again, I told myself as I was thinking about this, I'm not going to let myself be mad. I feel regret helping a homeless man. It's meant for me to walk through the storm. If a storm was going to come, then it's meant for me to walk through the storm, and I want to accept that, right? And I did walk through the storm. It was heavy. It was intense. A tree fell before my path. I had to walk around that. And so, but all that, I had no fear. It wasn't like, let me ever get home. I didn't run with that anxiety. I actually enjoyed it. It was refreshing because it was still hot outside. So it was a good way of getting, like, falling into a pool. And the clothes I had on, I didn't care about. So that they were designed that, I didn't have the anxiety and worry about my look at all. It was just enjoying that moment of being able. And the minute I got back to my place, it stopped raining. Literally, it was like, wow. So it was meant for me to go through that storm, but it was also meant to see, was I committed to give that homeless man that food? Because I knew that I could talk myself out of that and not give him the food because it fits my schedule better, so I don't walk in the storm. And just think about that from a context that almost makes sense to me to choose that path, right? And that's why I have to test myself every day. Am I living this law of service or just something I'm being performative with? And I refuse to be performative with it. So I got to test myself to live this and make that my intentionality and make that my choice. And then finally, I just want to say, while you're in the storm as well, we are designed and made engineered to need others.
Mm.
Our head tells us, I don't want to. I don't want to. That's not real. That's just what your head is. Voices that pop up based on your cultural givens, what you've been raised with. That voice is going to pop up. You don't have to accept that and say, that's me. So I always tell people, you don't believe that's not you, then predict the next thought you're going to say. You can't do it. It's just whatever thoughts going to pop up based off, what is he saying? What is he talking about? And once you realize those thoughts are not you, it empowers you now going back to that forgiveness. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person. It's because once you forgive it, you're losing the energy and the thoughts around it, and you're able to now not be consumed by it. But if you haven't forgiven a person, every time their essence appears, you're going to have an energy drainage. You're going to have thoughts about it. You're going to be controlled by that. Forgiveness now dissipates their energy so you can let go of the person and it doesn't affect you at all.
Mm.
That's the power, is because everything is energy. It's either a decrease or it's an increase. And navigating for me is navigating as much increase as possible, but understanding decrease is life. And then navigating the decreases so they lessen, or the severity of them lessen, but they're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I will finally want to close on this point. So that's life in general for everybody. So now, as we all heard about cancer, it's a part of our world now. It's like a matter of not if you get it, but when you get it and what kind. And you don't think about it. It's like around you, and it's like until it hits you. And then it hits you, then you got to deal with it. Now you got to deal with it. Now the reality changes and everything, and you've gone through that. And what I'm saying is putting that in that context for me, what's real is the choices you made within that space. That's what's real. That's what I look for. That's why I can say I'm honored to work with you and build with you, because that to me is the hero of the leadership in real time. It's not writing a book and saying, here's what I do. Here's the 5 steps of leadership. Right? That's easy, but having to make that choice in those moments at the most difficult, the most painful, the most uncertain, and still choosing love and still choosing care, still choosing to be connected in service of the humans. How can that not be the path to lift up and work with and support and then build with? Now you want to build guided tears to help others not go what you're going through.
Mm.
So that to me is that's the compelling story. That's the movement within itself. And I think that folks who don't get that, I do want to others, right? Because then that's something that's not in you innately to have emotional intelligence. And if you're not at this stage in your life of having emotional intelligence, I don't really want to try. I can't teach you that, right? And I had to begin to move forward without that. So I just wanted to make that my little final talking spot.
In order to have emotional intelligence, we have to experience, and we have to experience these stories. We can't just sit in a cave somewhere and meditate. Or isolate ourselves. We have to experience in order to navigate.
Yeah. And what's interesting is we need to have the experience of others.
Yeah.
Others mirroring us. So it's kind of interesting. We're talking about othering as in like a way of like I separate from wholeness, but it's also our reflections. And so I'm grateful that we're having this conversation of witnessing the balance between those two worlds.
It's always a balance.
What any closing thoughts, ladies, as we wrap up our show today, that you want to leave our audience with? A quote, peaceful thought, whatever comes to mind.
I think what's coming up for me right now is a little more organic, and it's just that grief is natural. Grief is a natural part of changing, and grief is the most challenging thing to experience alone because of those intrusive thoughts that do come in when we're in grief, and they just create othering. They create separation just automatically by the way of their design. And so It's a beautiful opportunity to come into this space that already has grief. It's already here. And to normalize that, to know that that's part of what we're discussing. And then also lean into that we're not doing this alone.
And I would say almost opposite of you. I would say live. And when I was young, I was pretty wild sometimes, and I guess my boys probably influenced me. I didn't have any girls around, so things got a little rough in conversations. And one of the phrases was "take life by the balls and run with it." So, sorry if that's gendering something or other, but that's what I had around me. And it's true. Just live, really live. And I also wanted a quote. You mentioned a quote. There's a quote that one of my most favorite teachers said to me, and he said, "You only know what you know until you know. So be good to yourself."
Oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those are all great points. And to that point, I created a frequency signal I called the path of the rider. And I talk about in the song riding a horse to get to my destination as opposed to a car or a plane or a boat. And I want to take my time and smell the birds, and I'm going to buzz with the bees, and I'm going to enjoy nature and enjoy life. But that's what it is. Life is the journey. There's no end goal. And we keep having we create this future that doesn't exist. And we live in that. Okay, let's do this next week. Let's do this. Next week doesn't exist. All it exists right now. And yesterday doesn't exist because that's just a memory that is there. And like I said, our recollection of it is not the same. Some energy happened there that we can agree upon, but what was important is that there was a lesson that we went through it. It is no more important to us in the 4th grade. It's a part of your past. And that's all it is. Now we blow it up and make a story about it to make it bigger. And I'm not trivializing anybody. That's everybody's choice to make of their own. I'm just saying that for me, that's how I look at life in that context in this 4th quarter of my life. Because living the way of not looking at that like that for the first 3 quarters of my life wasn't working. That I do know. Right. So that's why I look at, I try to make decisions to get them to them where they're as simple as possible. And if you choose love and you choose the increase and you choose service, all the religious books you study, the religious dogmas, they speak to that. Be Christ-like or be serving, be loving, be kind. You see that people have it on bumper stickers, people put in their ads. Corporations not even leverage that to try to build an identity with you. So you think drink Coke and be kind. And it's like, so the point of the matter is just simply be kind. So until next week, let's look at ways that create the art of othering. Thank you, ladies, for joining us.
Thank you.